Minister Samura.
Mr. President, I don't have the opportunity to sit in this particular chair very often. The least I can do is bang the desk click 2 times. Goodness gracious, man. Mr. President, I rise to commence the debate on the bill titled Road Traffic, Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notices Amendment Act 2024 before this Honorable Senate today. This bill, which was led by the Minister of Science, Energy and Telecommunications and Transport, Minister Vaz, was passed without amendments. No such was. Without any amendments in the other place on July 16th. This bill proposes to make minor amendments to the Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification Prescribed Notices Act 2023, the Principal 2023 Act, to ensure its accurate and efficient use. Like the 2023 Act, the bill affirms the intent to afford persons a period of reprieve to address outstanding matters for the motoring public in respect of the prescribed notices issued before February 1, 2023, under Section 116 of the Road Traffic Act 1938, and to nullify demerit points recorded against all driver's licenses before February 1, 2023. Outstanding tickets issued before February 1, 2018, and demerit points accrued up to February 1, 2023, were made null and void and not carried over to the Road Traffic Act 2018, which came into effect on February 1, 2023. For all tickets which were paid by January 31st, 2023, the demerit points were expunged. Mr. President, since the enactment of the 2023 Act, we have listened to the motoring public and judges and decided to propose some minor amendments to the Principal Act, which are captured in this bill. The bill comprises 4 clauses and seeks to amend the Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notices Act 2023 in 3 ways. The first clause at Section 1 introduces the bill citing the Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notices Amendment Act 2024. The bill shall be read and construed as one with the 2023 Act. The other 3 clauses contain the core provisions and are as follows. Section 2 amends one of the key terms in the interpretation section of the 2023 Act, specifically the meaning of outstanding traffic penalty. That definition will be entirely replaced with the following. Outstanding traffic penalty means the fixed penalty in respect of an offence to which Section 116 of the Road Traffic Act 1938 relates that would have been payable pursuant to a prescribed notice issued during the period commencing on February 1, 2018 and ending on January 31st, 2023, before the end of 21 days following the date of the notice, or such longer period, if any, as may be specified in the notice, or that would have been payable but was not paid within the prescribed time. A qualifying person is anyone who has been issued with a traffic ticket. The definition of outstanding traffic penalty in its expanded form in the bill will also contemplate any monetary penalty imposed by the traffic court or any parish court that becomes due for payment in relation to the offence that led to the prescribed notice being issued. Section 3 of the bill, colleagues, seeks to amend Section 4 of the 2023 Act by inserting the words "or any parish court" immediately after the words "traffic court." This amendment is deemed important to remove any uncertainty as to whether the parish courts have jurisdiction to handle road traffic matters akin to the key objectives in the 2023 Act. Section 4 of the bill seeks to repeal Section 6 of the Principal Act and replace it with the words, "The following are hereby rendered void and of no effect. A, any prescribed notice before February 1, 2018, for which payment of the outstanding penalty has not been made, and B, any charge for an offence that arose from a failure to pay a prescribed notice issued before February 1, 2018, if the charge was not determined by a court on or before January 31st, 2023. In the 2023 Act, colleagues, provision was made to make void the prescribed notice. This bill will go further to also make void any charge for an offence that arose from a failure to pay the prescribed notice issued before February 1, 2018. And in relation to that charge, the court had not decided on or before January 31st, 2023. So in closing, Mr. President, while we fulfill our role as legislators, it is the citizens' responsibility to stay informed about the laws and regulations governing our country. As observed on our roads, the daily lawlessness, as we know, has resulted in significant loss of life and property. Last year, we had, unfortunately, 425 road fatalities. As of July 8th of this year, the Road Safety Unit reported 202 road fatalities, indicating that we're on a similar trajectory with over 400 deaths this year. With this bill, we believe we can enforce our laws and save lives. I thank you. I invite colleagues, Mr. President, to make their contribution, although I expect it to be short.
Thank you, Senator Muda. Senator Samuda. Senator Lambert Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know how this bill is going to save lives, given that it deals with a period that is past. But then again, it is the nature of the government to say nice things, to say things that people feel good about, but in reality, nothing happens. So if it says it will save life, then it has the go-bell effects. Keep repeating it. It doesn't make it true. Mr. President, when I first saw this bill to be taken today, an act to amend the Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notices Act, I said, well, let me see if there's any change this week from last week. Because last week, we passed this earth-shaking bill to change the enactment clause. And when I look at this bill this year, and the bill last year, the act last year that is changing, it has the same enactment clause. And for the public purpose, let's read what the enactment clause says. Be it enacted by the King's most excellent majesty.
One minute. No, Senator Brown.
What?
You know that you
No, President, let me...
No, because you see you're talking... No. You're talking about... No, I'm addressing you. You're talking about the enactment clause. And you're on... Yes, because he's on social media with it, you know. He's not here, so alone him talk about it, you know. So him write a thing on social media and say, wait until I come here to deal with it. And you... Yes, he write it on social media and say, watch me and them. I'm not saying anything illegal, but I'm not doing anything illegal, but I'm pointing out to the public. Section 61 of the Constitution of Jamaica says, a bill shall not become law until the Governor General.
You finished, President?
I am about truth and informing the public, not misleading people. Well, I am participating in it. I am participating in it because I am participating in it because it relates to the Senate. No. A bill. Yes, I did. A bill shall not become law until the Governor General has assented thereto in Her Majesty's name and on Her Majesty's behalf, and has signed it in token of such assent. The bill that was passed to change the relevant clause has not been consented to by the Governor General, and that is why the bill that you are having in your hand here has the whole enactment clause. So you go on social media and mislead the entire 80 people that follow you, and you come here with it this morning.
I'm not speaking to you, Senator Sinclair. With the greatest of respect, Mr. President. Mr. President, from my understanding of the role of the President of the Senate, he is supposed to be the mediator, the umpire, who is impartial and not participating in the debate in the Senate. That is why we have 20 members inside the Senate, to participate in that cut and thrust of the debate. The fact of the matter is that the President has to be that guiding hand that you have been doing, Mr. President, rather than interfering in the debate. Let Cavan Gale or Mr. Sinclair get involved in that. You know, so don't engage in that, Mr. President. You know,
what I'm engaging in.
You don't know better.
What?
You're a political.
What I'm in. No. I'm addressing Senator Morris. What do you mean no? No. I'm addressing Senator Morris's. I'm addressing what Senator Morris had to say. Senator Morris, the difference that is happening here, you know, I'm not involving myself in a debate, you know. You are having a member who is speaking to the process of the Parliament and the Constitution. It's not a question open for debate. And I see on social media, I'm right, you know.
That's not true. You're lying, President. You're lying.
And then now he's coming to say that you passed legislation last week, but yet still the bills are not changed. The bill has not been assented to by the Governor General. And since you said that I'm a liar, right, I don't have an issue with that. So next speaker, because I'm not hearing you. Next speaker. Me accustomed to turn on mic, you know. You have to
Start again, President. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank colleagues for their contribution to the debate. I think the points you made, Mr. President, are worthy of repeat. The reality is the bill passed last week has not received the assent of the GG, and as such is not yet gazetted. It's also worthy of note that this particular piece of legislation, and I always write when they're tabled on them so that I have record, was tabled on the 19th of July, 2024, in this chamber on the same day that bill would have been passed. So contemplations of a change in language would not, in the enactment clause, would not have been reasonably expected. But to answer the single point that was made by the opposition before their exit, I'm tired. A functioning road traffic system with the right legislative underpinnings will save lives, because the courts will be able to dispose of some matters that have been clogging them up for a very long time. This bill removes the ambiguity and allows the police and indeed the courts to get on with the business of road safety by enforcing the Road Traffic Act. Mr. President, with that, I think that closes this particular debate. And I ask,
Go ahead, Senator.
the debate is at closure, I believe. As such, we ask that you put it to a vote by way of committee.
Go ahead, Senator.
Time.
The question is that the bill entitled entitled Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notice Amendment Act 2022 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Against?
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notices Act read a second time.
The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. I put clause 1, 2, and 3. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I put clause 4. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Aye. Against? The questions that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Minister?
President, I ask, Mr. Rala, Chairman, I ask that Mr. President, I ask that the bill be read a third time.
Those in favor? Against? Thank you.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Road Traffic Reprieve and Nullification of Prescribed Notices Act read a third time and pass.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister Dixon.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take second reading of a bill shortly entitled the Representation of the People Amendment Act 2024 and to take it through all its concluding stages.
Thank you. Those in favor? Aye. Against? Proceed, Minister.
Mr. President, a key item of public business today before us is a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Representation of the People Act. For the public watching, the Representation of the People Act, or ROPA, as some would shorten it, is one of the most consequential pieces of ordinary legislation on the statute books today. I know for me, having been appointed to the Senate a year ago, it's quite disappointing that for an act like this that we're not able to have the full debate we would want to. But the ROPA is a cornerstone of Jamaica's legislative framework. It governs the conduct of our elections and the maintenance of electoral integrity within the country. This act outlines the procedures for voter registration, the roles and responsibilities of electoral officials, and the processes for nominating candidates and conducting polls. ROPA ensures that elections are free, fair, and transparent, providing mechanisms for addressing electoral disputes and safeguarding the democratic rights of citizens. By stipulating clear guidelines and timelines, including provisions for by-elections and the handling of vacancies within municipal corporations. The Act upholds our cherished principles of representative democracy. And the amendment here today is really to modernize a critical aspect of ROPA provisions. This amendment is to allow for the period within which a by-election shall be held in the electoral division within the area of jurisdiction of a municipal corporation to be extended beyond the period of 3 months specified in paragraph 4, 5A and B of the 8th schedule of the Act, for a further period to be determined by the Minister with responsibility for electoral matters, not to exceed 90 days in the event of any of the occurrences specified in paragraph 11(1)A to E of the 8th schedule of the Act. In simpler, less legal language, this amendment allows deferral up to 90 days under clear, specific, listed circumstances. Mr. President, the circumstances as specified in paragraph 11(1)A to E of the 8th schedule of the Act are as follows. 1, the government having become engaged or being likely to become engaged in any war. 2, there being enforced a proclamation that a state of public emergency or a state of public disorder exists under Section 20 of the Constitution of Jamaica. 3, the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence, or outbreak of infectious disease or other calamity, whether similar to the foregoing or not. 4, the likelihood that the official list for all electoral divisions or for any particular electoral division will not be printed before the day specified for the holding of the poll, or that any essential electoral supplies or materials will not be available in adequate quantities upon such day. Or 5, riot, open violence, or other civil disturbance resulting in such interruption, obstruction, or abandonment of the electoral process as to prejudice the holding of a fair election. So as I said, Mr. President, these are clear, specific, listed circumstances where this extension could take place. Mr. President, I'm just going to go straight through to the concluding comments. The proposed amendment is not merely a procedural change. It is a step towards ensuring that our electoral processes remain fair, transparent, and effective, even in the face of unforeseen events. The bill acknowledges the reality that disasters and emergencies can be quite disruptive, and it provides a pragmatic solution to address these disruptions without undermining the democratic process. And Mr. President, I just would like to note, and I heard earlier, and I'm trying to find my notes, I heard the leader of opposition business in the Senate say that, you know, there are a lot of people who are miserable, and he spoke of the misery of people earlier, and he said people are miserable and justifiably so after the passage of Hurricane Beryl. And that's the reason why we have this amendment in place. We understand that there will be circumstances where we have an instant like Hurricane Beryl, it could be an earthquake, where we have to have provisions in place where we can extend the time within which we call a by-election. And just to note, Mr. President, for the record, up to Tuesday, in terms of the assessments done, in terms of homes across Jamaica, 3,221 families have had their houses severely damaged. 4,723 had minor damage, and 453 families had their homes totally destroyed as a result of Beryl. And in the earlier debate, we heard a lot about persons who do not have electricity and water. We are not in regular times, and this is for a hurricane that skirted Jamaica. It could have been much worse. We need to build in some flexibility in relation to laws like this. So the amendment ensures that our electoral processes remain robust and adaptable, capable of withstanding and responding to crises without compromising the democratic rights of our citizens. Mr. President, I now commend this bill to the members of this Honourable Senate for consideration and approval. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Minister. Senator Sinclair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I intend to be short, but I start off by indicating my full support for the bill. I mean, what it does, Mr. President, really is quite simple, for the fact that when one looks at the particular provision in ROPA, which it seeks to amend, in the 8th schedule, section 4.5 of the ROPA, when you look at that provision, it really allows for an extension after a date has been set. But there was a gap which would have existed, where you have a vacancy that would have arisen, but no date was set. So what we're seeking to do now is just to ensure that that gap is filled. And it is quite appropriate when one looks on the circumstances in which we presently exist with the passage of the hurricane. You know, I read some comments that came from the other place, read some comments that came out in the public media, where some persons seem to be, once there's a vacancy, clamor for an election. I think that in the circumstances that we are presently in, to do so would reflect insensitivity on the part of any person making that call. As we have heard from our minister in her opening, she has indicated the damage that has been brought upon many of our citizens in respect to their homes. And when you look on the bill, Mr. President, the estimates that have come forth through the various government agencies, the National Works Agency has said to us that damage to our road infrastructure, which reduces the mobility of persons across various spaces, is that that bill is in excess of 10 billion. We have heard about the damage to the agricultural sector. Estimates presently in excess of 10 billion. And so what we need in these circumstances is to facilitate the concentration of the resources of the state towards assisting persons in restoring their lives, restoring their livelihoods. And this administration, Mr. President, in what it is presently doing in the various areas, in the southern areas of Jamaica, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Catherine, where persons suffered significant damage, is that we are ensuring that the resources of the state goes towards assisting persons in restoring their lives, restoring their livelihoods. We have heard from the Minister of Social Security and Labour, where persons are being offered in respect to houses that were destroyed, totally destroyed, $400,000 in respect to those persons. These persons who have suffered severe damage to their homes, assistance to the value of $150,000, and in respect to others, $50,000. But, Mr. President, can you just imagine that in a situation where we have a disaster, whether it be a hurricane, earthquake, and we have to move resources into those areas, but persons are clamoring to have an election, in not allowing the state to focus its resources, human resources, financial resources in assisting persons. But some other person is having an election, and we know what goes with elections. Parties, and a lot of meetings that bring a lot of excitement and entertainment, while persons in other parts, our brothers and sisters, would be suffering. And you know, this morning when we had the debate on the income tax amendment, we heard from the leader of opposition business, speaking about just one constituency in Jamaica, where the misery index he has indicated has risen to this high level. I believe that what this bill is doing is affording the opportunity for the state to ensure that its resources are used appropriately in restoring lives and livelihoods. But, Mr. President, I just wish to make a few other comments on the particular provision. Because when you look on Section 4.1, where a general election in relation to municipal corporations is called, it is done by the Governor General making a proclamation in relation to the date of that particular election. But when you look on Section 4.5, where there's a by-election, it says that the by-election to fill the vacancy in any electoral division within the area of jurisdiction of a municipal corporation shall be held on such day as the chairperson of the municipal corporation shall direct by order published in the Gazette after consultation with the chief electoral officer. And then it sets out a particular time of 3 months. What I find a little strange about it is that one process is used in that section which requires the Governor General to do certain things in respect to naming the days. But in respect to 4.5, it is the chairperson of the municipal corporation after consultation with the chief electoral officer. And I think that there is some ambiguity. It's quite strange as to how that provision is written. And I believe that the Electoral Commission and the Parliament needs to look on how that particular provision, Section 4.5, is written and possibly may require additional drafting. I've heard comments too, Mr. President, in relation to particular divisions may be left for this 3-month period without a representative. Now, my view of representation does not reside solely in the existence of a councillor for a division, because representation and the Local Governance Act facilitates it, where you have the PDCs, the CDCs, other non-government organizations which exist within communities to participate in the whole process and to make representation on behalf of communities. So, in my mind, a 3-month extension in the particular circumstances, I do not believe removes the whole or interferes with the democratic process in any significant way. Representation can still continue. And in any division that does not have a sitting councillor, the chairman of that particular municipal corporation is the person that has responsibility in respect to ensuring that the residents in that particular area, that they are not left unattended. So, as I said, representation is, to me, broader than the existence of a particular representative elected as a councillor. And you know, what I find also interesting is that the same Section 4 allows for a division to go unrepresented by a councillor for 12 months. For 12 months. When you look on Section 4.5, it says, no such by-election shall be held if a vacancy occurs within 1 year before the next general election to be held in accordance with subparagraph 1. So what that is saying, if at the end of the 3rd year there was a vacancy that was created and a vacancy was created, that vacancy remains for the 12-month period until a general election is held. We hear persons making an issue over this particular extension by this bill that we have before us. but they have not made any or had any concern about the fact that it is potentially possible for a division to go unrepresented for a period of 12 months under the same Section 4.5. So I believe, as I said, Mr. President, that there needs to be a thorough look on 4.5, Section 4.5 of the ROPA, and to see if there is any need for any further adjustments so that we don't have issues as what I spoke about in relation to who triggers and how it is triggered for the by-election to be held, as well as the 12-month period that is potentially possible in the event that the vacancy occurs with only 1 year remaining before a general election. So with those few words, Mr. President, I support the bill as presented to us. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Sinclair. Minister Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I thank my colleague, Senator Sinclair, for his comments in support and also his message in terms of looking at ROPA and looking at that same section in a bit more detail going forward. As I close, Mr. President, I know that a lot of the discussions have been around the passing of Councillor Bryan and the election that, the by-election that needs to take place. I just wanted to note for the record in terms of St. Thomas that St. Thomas was not unaffected by the hurricane. Hurricane Beryl had an impact. There are many persons who still do not have water and electricity. In terms of the assessment specifically to St. Thomas, there were 84 families that had minor damage to their homes, and this is not finished. This is as at Tuesday, and assessments are continuing. 49 were severely damaged, and 7 were totally destroyed. So St. Thomas did not have no damage at all. It actually had significant damage. And as I close, Mr. President, I just want to also again note that for all of those who've been affected, that the government has done quite a bit of work in terms of figuring out how we can support. And it's an administration that supports persons who are in their time of need, and that has been our focus. And it was announced earlier this week that those individuals who had minor damage would receive a grant of $50,000. Those whose homes were severely damaged would get a grant of $150,000. And those that were completely destroyed would get a grant of $400,000. And again, for those who are elderly or indigent, the government is looking at actually rebuilding their houses. I believe that is fantastic. That is unheard of in our history, and it is to be celebrated. And I believe that's what an administration after a crisis should be focused on. How do we get our people back up and running? And so, Mr. President, having said that, I now ask that the bill be read a second time.
Thank you, Minister. The question is that the bill be read for a second time. Those in favor? Against? Madam Clerk.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Representation of the People Act, read a second time.
The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Thank you, members. I put clauses 1 and 2. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Aye. Against? The questions that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment.
Mr. President, I now ask that the bill be read a third time.
Thank you. The question is that the bill be read a third time. Thank you, Minister. Those in favor? Against? Ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Representation of the People Act read a third time and pass.
Before any further business? Any further business? Just before I ask for the adjournment, I just bring to the attention really of the members of the Senate and the public who may or may not have an interest in this matter. Last week, the Senate passed into law a bill which altered the enacting clause which appears on the front of all legislation, which reads, "Be it enacted by the King's most excellent majesty," and it goes on. And the bill was passed in the Senate last week, Friday, and has gone through the process of being assented by the Governor General, because the Constitution at 61 reads, "A bill shall not become law until the Governor General has assented thereto in Her Majesty's name and on Her Majesty's behalf, and has signed it in token of such assent." In relation to this particular bill, it remains just that, a bill, because it has not yet received the consent of the Governor General. Senator Brown, in his presentation today, sought to raise the fact that the bill or bills that we are dealing with today continue to have the old enactment clause reference to King's most excellent majesty. And I sought to interrupt him to explain to him why that is so. Because on his social media posts, and I take it is him because it has his name and a picture of himself, he reads, "If all you say is true, can you explain why next Friday, that's today, the Senate will debate two bills with the same words keeping the king in our laws?" So, in reality, Senator Brown asked for an explanation as to why it is the law or the bills continue with the old enactment clause. And I sought to bring this to his attention, bring to the attention of the Senate, that in his social media posts he has been discussing this matter. And I sought to bring it to his attention in response to what he wrote in the social media. And I read it again. "If all you say is true, can you explain," well, I can, "why next Friday the Senate will debate two bills with the same words, keeping the king in our laws?" And that is what I was doing. He breached sections 34 and 41 of the standing orders, and in exercise of the authority which is given to me to maintain order in the Senate, I indicated to him that I would not continue to allow his presentation, he having referred to the President as a liar on 2 occasions. The reference to liar refers to what I just read on the social media. So it indicates quite correctly that what I was saying was quite true. It was my intention to sanction Senator Brown, having stopped his presentation, but before I could do so, all the members of the PNP, of the opposition, all opposition senators, including the leader of opposition business, decided to leave the chamber and to leave the public's business, the people of Jamaica's business, unattended to. So I made the decision to prevent his continued presentation, having referred to me as a liar on 2 occasions. before I could employ the appropriate sanction, he and all the opposition members left, including the leader of the opposition. Left when a debate concerning the Road Traffic Act was scheduled to be held. In fact, it was. And another debate concerning the Representation of the People's Act, which would deal with the postponement of the by-election, local government by-election in the parish of St. Thomas. And they chose to leave the people's business, for which they claim to be so interested, to leave the people's business unattended, in support of Senator Brown, who was in breach of the standing orders by his outrageous, rude, and unparliamentary behavior. And I'm not going to put up with it. Thank you very much. Minister?
Mr. President, the agenda of the day is indeed complete, so it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the Senate adjourns for a date to be fixed.
Minister, are we going into recess, or we may meet next week?
I suspect it will be a recess, but I'll allow the leader to communicate with you on that.
Okay. So the question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Against? This Honorable Senate now stands adjourned for a date to be fixed.
The Jamaica 62 Independence Church Service, Grace Missionary Church, Sunday, July 28, 9 a.m. A call for prayer for the nation, especially Jamaicans affected by Hurricane Beryl. Live, right here on PBCJ, Sunday, July 28, 9 a.m. Join us and be blessed.
Grace brought me here. Jamaica, lost the star. God is standing by. God is there. He's standing by. I know your heart's been torn. You say there's no point in carrying on. Big God, you answer whenever I call. You catch me whenever I fall. You're just that big God. Oh, yeah. Again, and I said, open up the gates and let the king come in. Open up the gates and let his majesty come in. Nation tremble, enemies surrender to the one who births the kingdom from within. Well, it's the way we say, Christ is the way yesterday and today. Live by every word, but could I never go astray. Chat it on the mic when I night and day. I saw me turn, I saw me stay. Jesus, you're amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Oh God, amazing, amazing, amazing. You are amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Lord. Salvation, you want it, it's free, have it, you see, now me baby, only Jesus Christ alone can make you have it. Slick Rick, you're living in the end time, know where you're out here. Spreading joy,
Jamaica improve, heart free, wages increase, housing scheme a bill up, we have more opportunities, roads bill and the dollar stable. We are building Jamaica.